And here are the games. So in game number 1, I decided to keep a potentially risky opening hand. All I have here are a mountain and a plains. So keeping a 2-land hand, definitely not the wisest thing in a lot of cases, but I can actually play 3 of my cards. So I can get the Arsonist, which stops a lot of offense in its tracks. The Pegasus puts offense of my own out, and then the Pacifism, if I'm desperately mana screwed, will be able to slow my opponent down a little bit. So hopefully this won't turn out too badly. And it's worth noting, I win the die roll, but I choose to play last. Again, I just feel like the extra card is better, and the 2 cards of advantage versus your opponent are worth way more than any tempo I could muster. So my opponent drops a forest. I draw another Pegasus, so these are both of my Pegasus. I have the army of Pegasi ready to go. I've got my Arsonist ready to plink down some damage or block some offense, depending on the situation. My opponent does have this Alabaster Mage, which I'm so happy to see. So this really showcases the power of the Arsonist. Now that my opponent has a high quality creature out there, he's not going to want to attack into this Arsonist, because as soon as he does, this Alabaster Mage is dead. And we're going to see in this game how that Arsonist actually saves me quite a bit of damage. I draw my big flyer, still want some land, and I play down my Pegasus. I thought about attacking with the Arsonist, by the way, just to see if I could sneak that damage through, but honestly, I don't want to trade my Pegasus for his Mage, so I'd rather just keep his Mage from attacking. He puts down a Brindleboar, not the most threatening creature. So things are looking good. Now I am officially at this point mana screwed, so even better that I went second as opposed to first, because now I'm going to, get that land just a little bit sooner. And there's no reason not to start attacking with my Pegasus. I put down my other Pegasus, and despite being screwed, I have a fairly formidable offense here, hitting him for 4 a turn. He drops an Assault Griffin, though, so he'll be able to outrace me at this point with that Griffin. Notice he does not attack with the Boar. He's not going to attack, and it's all because of this Goblin Arsonist. Now, how many 1-drops are there that can flat out stop a 2/2 from attacking you? There's not many, but he really doesn't want to lose his high-quality creature. I still don't draw a land. I decide that at this point I'm getting a little desperate, and when you're desperate, you've got to try to race. So I pacify the Griffin, and then I keep attacking with my army. So 14 hit points, I've gotten him down pretty good. He is not mana screwed. He plays his 5th land, and he draws a Solemn Simulacrum. All things considered, I'm really not that frightened by this. It's just a 2/2. I don't mind that he's pulling a land out. I'm certainly not going to kill it, so he's not going to get to draw a card off of it. A 2/2 for 4 mana is something I'm not really scared of, unless of course he actually makes use of that land. I draw not a land. Well, I can still keep attacking, so he's down to 10 hit points. I might just win with these Pegasi. Here's something I mentioned earlier in one of the other in the first draft video. You really want cards in your deck that give you a chance of winning. Like these Pegasus things, they're not bombs by any means. There are lots of things that can stop them, but they can win a game just because they have evasion. There's 1, 2, 3 creatures that my opponent have played that are doing nothing to stop him from taking 2 damage a turn from these guys. They're quite mighty. Now, there's no reason not to play the Crimson Mage at this point. It's totally useless, just completely useless, but I might as well put it down, because I might need to chump block I might need something on the board to chump block with if he does actually take care of these flyers. Alright, he draws a Plains. At this point, he is officially a little bit flooded. One of these lands did come from the Simulacrum, so technically he's only drawn 6, but, that is a little bit of flooding in draft, especially this early on. At this point, he finally decides to attack with everything, so he's willing to kill off his Alabaster Mage because he is getting low. This is a good signal to me. It suggests he's desperate and doesn't have any answers coming out for the Pegasi anytime soon. Well, I block the Boar with my Arsonist, and I'm going to kill the Alabaster Mage when the Arsonist dies. Now, at this point, he does activate the Alabaster Mage 3 times to give all of his attackers lifelink, which on the one hand gives him 6 life, so that's kind of sad, but on the other hand, it shows that he has nothing better to cast, so these 2 cards are apparently not very good. Now, with 7 mana, he can cast just about anything in his deck, so these might just be lands. He might be really, really flooded. Well, he collects 6 hit points, scores 4 damage on me, and then that'll be the last of that life stealing. I finally draw another land. A little sad that it's not a plains, so I cannot play out this Warhorse. but it's better than nothing, and I'm getting a little bit closer to getting this Griffin out. On the attack step, I decide to keep the Crimson Mage back. Possibly this was an error. Maybe I should have just gone for it, dealt 6 damage. I might have also been afraid of the fact that this boar can sacrifice for 4 hit points, so he's at a virtual 20 hit points, and I don't want to race him too hard. So he takes the damage, because what else is he going to do? And I decide to play down my greatsword. So it's a little desperate, but this greatsword, I could attach it to a pegasus and make it really mighty and get the race going a little bit faster. Honestly, though, this is kind of showing how the greatsword's not a great card. Another creature here would have been way more useful than that sword. He plays another plains. Okay, he is good and flooded. He attacks with just the simulacrum. I believe this is a mistake. He's obviously trying to bait me to block it so that he can die and I will draw a card, but I'm clearly not going to do that. He might as well have just attacked with the board too. Perhaps he didn't want to race against my damage and wants to be able to block the Crimson Mage. So yeah, maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe that's a reasonable decision. I draw another mountain. Now at this point I have decisions to make. I could either attach the greatsword to the Pegasus, or I can increase my creature presence on the board. I decide to go for the creature. Possibly it's an error to do that. But I figure if he has some kind of removal, maybe, I don't want this greatsword to be attached. At the same time, if he had some kind of a plummet or something, he surely would have used it on these Pegasi by now. A Mighty Leap, like the one I have here, if he had that, he could have actually killed these Pegasus at any time with the Brindle Boar. But I decide to play down the bird. He gets a forest, so he's really flooded. I'm obviously not going to block that simulacrum. I do not want him drawing any kinds of outs. And he does have pacifism for my Griffin. Now I remake what is possibly my mistake. I again just attack with the Pegasus army, and I put down the second Griffin that I just drew as opposed to attaching the greatsword. Had I attached the greatsword, I would have been able to deal 7 damage, which would not have been enough to kill him, and I wouldn't have had enough mana left to use the Mighty Leap. So perhaps that's why I figured going for the Griffin would be better. Well, he draws another forest. He attacks again with the simulacrum. I again don't block. And now I attach the greatsword to the Pegasus, and I've got enough damage to kill him, even after he sacrifices the Brindle Boar for more life. So he sacrifices it anyway, to put him at 8 hit points, and then I kill him for 8 hit points, and win the game. So nice round 1, good start to the match. Okay, let's take a look at the next game with the same opponent. He gets to choose now whether to go first or second, of course, because he lost. He chooses to go first, which, again, I don't think is a great play. Now, I've got a questionable hand here. Questionable, questionable, questionable. I've got 2 red creatures and 3 plains and artifacts that don't do anything. What do I decide to do? Keep the hand. I've just been burned a lot lately on mulliganing into hands with no mana, which I know that does not obey the laws of probability. They are independent events, and I really shouldn't let past events stop me from making good decisions. Probably the better call here would have been to mulligan. Well, the good news is I draw a mountain. The bad news is I still have just about nothing in my hand. Turns out he's got a Pegasus as well, so he's definitely starting out on the lead here. All I got is this mage, and if he drops anything, then I'm not racing, because that mage isn't going to attack into anything. He slams me for 2 with the Pegasus, and doesn't actually have another creature to play, so I will get to race him a bit. But it's a little bit sad here that I just am drawing bunches of land. I have 6 land, and furthermore, only one of them is a mountain, so I can't even play the 2 things in my deck that cost 6 mana, the 2 volcanic dragons. So definitely not a great start here. I play the Manolith, though, so that I can play my other creature. I don't want to put the greatsword down and leave this Gorehorn Minotaur unplayable in my hand. On his turn, he again hits me for 2 with the Pegasus. And this time, unfortunately, he does have something. Thankfully, it's just the stupid simulacrum. Okay, I know it's a powerful card and all, but honestly, like, when you're behind, this is a pretty happy 4-drop to see. It's just a 2-2. It's not super threatening. Alright, now I decide at this point to actually put down my Griffin, because then I can maybe trigger Bloodthirst next round and put the Gorehorn Minotaur down and have him be bigger. Also, with the Manolith, I can actually give the Griffin haste and get in for 3 points of damage. So I'm actually racing okay, thanks to that Griffin draw. He puts down a plains and has no creature. So whereas I'm getting flooded, he's getting flooded as well. Here, I have to make a decision, and I'm pretty sure, given how this game went out, I made the wrong decision. I can actually play a plains, put a greatsword, and equip it onto the griffin, and attack. Now the risk is that I would spend all 6 of my mana to get, plummeted, or like sudden, or mighty leaped. But I think that still would have been worth going for, because I was thinking at the time, well, that would be a waste of 6 mana, but really it's only a waste of 3 mana. Paying the 3 to get the greatsword down is worth it, and even if the worst happens next round, I can still put down a griffin, I can still make him hasty. So I really should have done that. Instead, I decided to play the griffin, because I can haste them up, and then I attack with them both. So I have some good creature presence. I'm trying to basically fight past this Pegasus. I just realized everything I said was totally idiotic. Of course there was no point in putting on the greatsword because he kept his Pegasus around to block this time. My bad. So I make a reasonable decision here to just kind of fight past and keep racing, seeing that he's flooded. He does not attack with the Simulacrum. I guess he's making sure that my Crimson Mage can't attack, and clearly he had no other creature to play, so that was a good decision on his part. Okay, I draw a Fireball. Now it is here that I make an error. Fireball, especially when you have a lot of mana, becomes very mighty because you can burn people mostly to death. Now here, Fireball with 1 red mana and 6 other land, I can hit him for 6 damage, which means if I play the Greatsword, equip it, and then swing, I'm gonna hit him for 6 damage, drop him down to 6 hit points, and he will be dead next turn, barring any kind of life gain. However, instead of doing that, I decide to swing with the Griffin, leave him at 9 hit points, and play the Minotaurs to get the Bloodthirst down. He is white, and there is a Wrath card in 12th edition, which I decide not to play around because, hey, it's a rare. But he did have an awful lot of cards in his hand, considering how much mana was left untapped, which I really should have read as a signal. And I really should have read this as a signal as well, that he's attacking with the Simulacrum now, whereas he was keeping it around as a blocker before. I just take it as an act of desperation, trying to get a cheapo card off of me. Well, he actually does have the Wrath. He's got the Day of Judgment. So again, had I played the Greatsword and equipped it and put it on my Griffin, he would have been at 6 hit points. I would now just win the game with Fireball. Instead, life is very different. He draws a card off the Simulacrum that dies, and he actually has just enough mana now to play the Griffin. So he's the only one with the creature. I've got this useless Greatsword and a Fireball that is 3 mana shy of killing him. Now, when I draw this mountain, I decide to hang back on the Fireball, because I'm at a pretty healthy life total. If he plays another creature, I've got enough mana that the odds are good I'll be able to kill both creatures with the Fireball. So I feel like I made a reasonable play here, just keeping hope alive and saving the Fireball for later. He does not, however, have another creature. He plays Spirit Mantle. That's that enchantment going around that makes a creature invincible to creatures. So that quickens his clock a little bit. He gets me down to 10 hit points. And I draw a Mighty Leap. I decide, I'm in desperate straits here. This thing still only has 3 toughness. I have enough Fireball to target 2 creatures and, deal 3 damage to each. So I decide to take 1 more hit from him and see if he can play another creature down that I can kill. Well, he does hit me for 4 damage, and he does not play any other creatures. So again, I'm like left waiting, trying to figure out what to do. Now I draw another land, which is tragic because I still can't do anything about this Griffin. But notice now, I'm actually, because of my flooding, I'm actually just 1 mana shy of killing him with Fireball. 1 mountain to cast, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8 mana, so I'm just 1 mana shy of casting Fireball. And this is where I decide to, again, let the Griffin live, which I believe is the correct play. Tell me if you think you disagree. But my thinking is that even though I am already flooded, I have drawn 8 of my lands. That means there's 9 in the deck. That means I have 9 outs, basically. By contrast, if I use the Fireball on this creature, things are a lot more dicey. I have to draw creatures and then hope that they're better than the creatures that he's top decking, and so on. I would rather give myself, more outs by just having 9 cards in the deck that will win me the game. It's a little bit higher than, 33% chance that I'm going to get that land I need. Well, he attacks me. He doesn't have any combat tricks to finish me off. He does play another creature, but it is a Cudgel Troll. So that puts me in an awkward bind because the Cudgel Troll regenerates. So while I could quote-unquote kill it with Fireball, it's not going to stay dead. So I have to draw the land now or I lose. I do get lucky though and I draw the land and I win the game. It's really important in Magic that when you get lucky and win a game, you don't attribute that to your own skill. Like, I can't just look at this game and go, oh yeah, I won, go me. Like, it's important to recognize, even when you win, where you might have played horribly. So here, earlier in the game, I really should have just put the Greatsword onto one of my flyers and then killed them the next turn with Fireball. Then I wouldn't have even needed to get lucky. But in this case, you know, luck came through. I don't feel guilty about that by any means, because, you know, certainly luck comes through for my opponents often enough. It all balances out in the end. But this particular time, I did get the land I needed. I Fireball him for 9 and win the game. And the match. So, that was match 1. Now, match 2, it was really tragic. There's a trick that you can do in order to be able to see games that Magic Online, for whatever, doesn't save a replay of. I forgot to do this trick for 2 games. You have to basically write down the game number, and then if it doesn't appear in your replay list, you can force the game to appear by editing a text file. Well, if you don't write down that number while the game is happening, you lose that chance forever, because the game disappears, and then if it's not in the replays, you're screwed. So, there were 2 games in this tournament for which I forgot to write down the number. Those were the 2 games that didn't get saved by MTGO. Fortunately, they weren't the most exciting games. They were the first 2 games of my match in round 2. We can take a look at the 3rd game. Basically, what you need to know about this guy's deck, he went mono blue, so I'm pretty certain he was the guy who got the Looters and the Army of Phantasmal Bears. He also has that Harbor Serpent. It's that 5/5 Island Walker that is only able to attack if there are 5 islands on the board. Well, when you're mono blue, and then that thing costs 6 mana, it's guaranteed to go off. However, because he is mono blue, he also had a lot of marginal cards. In the first round, I got mana flooded and lost, but there was a key moment where I chose to Fireball his Phantasmal Dragon. So the Phantasmal Dragon is that 5/5 flyer in blue that blows up if you target it with something. After I killed it, he dropped another one on the next round. So had I waited, I could have killed both of them with my Fireball. Instead, I only killed one, and then that plus the flooding made him win. In the second game, he had mana problems, and I beat him down. The third game, luckily the one that saved, was the most interesting game. So I kept this hand. He had chosen to play first, like, you know, everyone on Magic Online does, for which I was grateful, because I had a pretty decent set of stuff. Incinerate to stop some early aggression, 2 early drops I could make, the Veteran, once my 3rd land comes online, and I held my breath. Does he have a Phantasmal Bear? Nope. Lucky me. I draw another Veteran instead of a land, so I play my planes and hope for the best. He's got nothing too. I still don't draw a land, so I'm getting a little nervous here. I decided to put down the Lawkeeper. Even though it is cheaper than either the Pegasus or the Mage, I don't really want to start racing. I want to put down the creature that basically beats his deck. This thing, because it can target opponent's creatures, kills off his Phantasmal Dragons, which there are 2 of. Weirdly enough, I didn't see any in the draft. It also murders all of his bears. So I put it down. Possibly that was a miscalculation, because I know that this guy is carrying Mana Leaks, so maybe I should have kept him around and tried to bait the Mana Leak with like the Crimson Mage or something. But no Mana Leak there. On turn 3, he does have a creature. Thankfully, it's not the Ether Adept. That would have... He has one of those in this deck. It's the 2/2 blue creature that bounces an opponent's creature. Thankfully, it's not that. He just puts down this aggressive flyer, which I will be able to start tying down. Hopefully, if I get another mana, I do. So I decide to play down my Pegasus so I can race with him a little bit. But also, you know, keep tapping down his flyer, leaving a mana open. That's why I didn't want to put down this Veteran. Again, I just feel uncomfortable about racing when I don't have the mana to cast my spells, and he does. He's got nothing on that turn. I draw a Griffin. Well, that's really sad. So the tricky thing about being mana screwed is you have to, even though it limits what you can play, in a sense it actually just makes correct play very difficult. If there's one game in the match where I'm pretty sure I made some errors that even I don't know about in review, it's probably this game. I decide not to go for the Veterans, because I really want to keep mana around to keep blocking his Drake. If he's not going to play anything, I don't want to try to race him. I want to, hang steady, just try to hold on as tightly as I can until I can get my extra land online. So here I decide to put down a Crimson Mage. I'm also saving my Incinerate in case he drops a bigger threat. At 5 mana, he does have a bigger threat. It's the Chasm Drake. I can tap his other flyer, so still stopping him from attacking me, and untap. Alright, still no mana. I really would have loved to see another mana, because if I did, I could start getting these veterans down while still keeping a plains open for tapping down his creature. So I decide here to just kill off his Drake, because I do have an opportunity to hit him for 4 damage. And I know I really need to get rid of that Drake anyway. I saved the pacifism because I know he's got bigger creatures out there, like that Harbor Serpent, which is the 5/5. Well, he drops his 6 land and island, plays a Kite Shield, which I am so happy to see. This is a totally irrelevant card in this matchup. I'm amazed he did not put it out into a sideboard. It's possible that because he's mono blue, that he was struggling for playables and just doesn't, literally just doesn't have a sideboard. He taps a bunch of mana and plays the Crumbling Colossus, which again is a card I'm super happy to see, way happier than the Harbor Serpent, because this thing, he can bash me with it once for 1 billion damage, but I don't mind because my life total is high, so I don't really care if he does that. And he plays a bear. I decide to tap his Drake to stop him from getting any damage. Possibly that was a mistake. He's only got 1 card left. Maybe I should have just killed the bear and then taken the hit. So I think I misplayed there. I think it would have been smarter just to kill the bear with the Lawkeeper, take potentially 7 damage, but then, swing at him for 4 and be tied, and then be in pretty good shape. So here I decide to swing at him with my Pegasus, get some more damage on, and I decide to put down the veteran. Or I think about it, change my mind, think about pacifism, change my mind, think about the veteran, change my mind again. So I was really struggling to figure out the correct play here, and give me any insight that you have in the forums. I was thinking, I could pacify the Drake, use the Lawkeeper to kill the bear, but then I don't have enough mana left to play either the veteran or the Armored Warhorse. Ultimately, I decided to just go for the veteran. So this does give him leave to bash me for 12 points of damage, if he wishes. But I ultimately decided he probably wouldn't go for that. With just 1 card left, he's probably not going to try to throw everything in, especially since it means losing his blocker against my big dude. So I make that gamble. He plays a Great Sword, which is a little bit more relevant in this matchup, although I question him for playing 2 pieces of equipment in a deck that's full of phantasmal creatures that blow up when they're targeted. He decides not to swing at me at all, so my little gamble of getting this dude down pays off. I get a card that's still not a land. This Divine Favor is something I sideboarded in because he had 2 of those huge dragons. I basically put in everything that could target a creature, and I sideboarded out one of my Volcanic Dragons because the big flyers aren't so impressive when he's got 5/5s. Well, here I can just put it on my Pegasus. Now the Pegasus can actually withstand the Drake. And I get some more life to make the attack of this Colossus just that much less relevant. I attack with the Pegasus. He blocks with the Drake, and I wonder what on earth was the point of blocking with the Drake, because there is no combat trick in blue that I know of that would make blocking profitable for him. He of course could have an unsummon, but then he could just cast the unsummon without blocking. Well, it turns out he has his last card in his hand is a Turn to Frog, which he casts on his own flyer rather than on mine. And at that point, of course, I just kill it. And he says, "Wow." And then, "Lucky I messed up." Now, this might be the most important moment in the game, when he says, "Lucky I messed up." Now, if this gentleman happens to be watching the video, and I am impugning your character, and you feel like I've misjudged you, please let me know, and I will apologize. But from a comment like, "Wow, lucky I messed up," I gather that, he feels like he just lost because of bad luck. He throws out this rage, concedes from the game, and moves on. But let's actually analyze this. So, first of all, Casting Turn to Frog on my creature would have done nothing, because it would have turned it into a 1/1, fine. However, this Divine Favor enchantment would have still applied, so it still would have been a 2/4 instead of a 3/4. It still would have killed his flyer without dying itself. So the combat trick that he was intending to play and messed up still wouldn't have actually worked. Second of all, let's take a look at how quote-unquote lucky I was. First of all, I was mana screwed. Second of all, he played marginal cards here. Really marginal cards. Turn to Frog, not a great card. Crumbling Colossus, not so good. And again, the pieces of equipment in a deck that has untargetable creatures. So he chose to go mono blue, and I think that's the reason why he's playing all these marginal cards. I'm almost certain there could have been some other color in the draft going around that he could have splashed for and improved the quality of his deck tremendously. Then he wouldn't have been able to play those Harbor Serpents, but honestly a 5/5 for 6 mana is not anything to scream home about. So whenever you lose a game due to bad luck, you've always got this choice, right? You can always say to yourself, I just lost because my opponent was lucky, screw him, and then rage quit, like a lot of people do on Magic Online, or you can ask yourself, what could I have done differently? And it seems to me like this opponent is just doing the raging, and that's unfortunate. On Magic Online or in Magic in real life, anytime you have that option to either just rage about luck or to ask yourself what you could have done differently, one of those things is ultimately going to make you a better player, and one of those things is not. So I'm just sad that my opponent here is not really giving himself a chance to analyze his games and learn from his mistakes, thinking that he just lost because of bad luck. Well, anyway, that ends the second match, and we move on to the third match. This was against a guy with the French word for tiger in his name. I win the die roll. I choose to go second, as I always do. And I keep what honestly is like maybe the best starting hand, one of the best possible starting hands in this deck. I've got my Lawkeeper, I've got the Pegasus, I've got the Mage. I can play all those things. I can time down, I can get some early aggression in. It's just great. And I even get another Mountain, so I know I can play Chandra's Outrage. Life is good. Finally, the mana works out well. He plays the Elves. This is always an interesting decision. I could attack with the Lawkeeper, see if he'll trade the Elves for it. The thing is, if he doesn't actually have a use for the Elves on turn 4, that would just be a tragic and catastrophically bad trade. So I don't do that. I don't attack. I just put down my Pegasus and I get ready to attack. Now, unfortunately, he does have the Giant Spider, which he plays now. So that is a pretty good answer to the Pegasus, and I'm one turn away from being able to Chandra's Outrage it to death. So, on turn 3, I don't mind putting down my Veteran, and I'll have a pretty good attacking force when I Outrage his Spider. On turn, whatever turn this is, 4, he again has a use for his Elves. Thankfully, it's just a Bonebreaker Giant. I'm not too scared, because I'm going to kill the Spider, and then I can tap down the Giant. No biggie. He attacks with his Spider, though. Now, there's two mistakes that he made this turn which compound rather badly for him. First of all, he cast this Giant before attacking. You, again, never want to do that unless there's a really good reason because it tips your hand to the opponent. But that's fine if he wasn't going to attack. However, attacking with the Spider is a mistake because I can actually block it with both of my guys and kill it because I've got 4 power here, and he cannot kill both of my guys with only 2 power. He can only kill one of them. Now, had he left his mana open, if he really wanted to just, I guess be super aggressive and race me, he could have attacked with the Spider, and that might have been okay because then I might have been scared to double block. Because with, 5 mana open, green he might have a combat trick, red he might have removal, it's possible that he could just kill off one of my creatures and then the Spider would kill off the other one. But when you compound those two decisions to both play before attacking and attack with the Spider that can be double blocked, now I know that I can double block him and kill him safely because he's tapped out. He has no tricks he can play. So I do that. I don't mind losing this Pegasus to the Spider because the Pegasus is useless while the Spider's on the board. So we have that exchange take place. He of course does kill off my more aggressive creature, and I draw Volcanic Dragon. So this is a really happy place to be. Either I draw a land and I can play this, or I don't draw a land, in which case it's something else that I can play. So I know that any draw I get now is going to be useful to me. I decide to be aggressive, and Chandra's Outrage is big dude. Now, I make this mistake that I seem to make a lot. I hold my Lawkeeper back. I really should have attacked with him. So that's 1 point of damage that I don't give him for no reason whatsoever. On this turn, he plays another mountain, and he arachnously webs my Lawkeeper. So this is kind of like the green pacifism that costs more and also prevents a creature from using activated abilities, which is quite relevant. Now this thing does blow up if I can get the Lawkeeper's power to 4 or more. Unfortunately, Mighty Leap is the only combat trick I have, and it will only get this guy's power up to 3. So this is good. For him, I mean, because those disenchants that were going around the draft, none of them wheeled. They went into other people's decks, so I don't actually have any sideboard removal for enchantments. This Lawkeeper is as good as dead. He is totally out of the game. He correctly swings at me with the elves, because that's what you're supposed to do. I draw the Minotaurs, so again, it's nice when you've got like 5 lands and a dragon. Anything you draw is going to be useful. Those Minotaurs certainly fit the bill because I hit him for 3, and now I can get Bloodthirst down on these guys. So I'm in pretty good shape here. This guy is not going to have any Wrath of God with green or red that I know of. Now he starts tapping all of his mana and the elf, and I'm like, oh no, is it El Tramplino? It is El Tramplino, and I cannot tie him down with my Lawkeeper because he is out of commission. So that is a shame. Fortunately, I draw a land this time, so while my ground forces can't attack, my dragon can, and I go ahead and I swing at him. It's worth noting, going all in with the attack was not a good play here, because he can block my Minotaurs. I would then deal 7 damage to him, and he would be at 5 hit points, which is 1 more hit point than my dragon can deal with. Notice that had I attacked earlier with the Lawkeeper, I actually could go all in and win next turn, because he's only got 1 card in his hand, and it's not likely to be a good enough answer for the dragon. It's pretty much going to have to be Chandra's Outrage or bust for him, as far as being, unless I am mistaken, it would have to be Chandra's Outrage or bust to kill off this flyer, unless he's like got Plummet in his main deck or like a Spider Fling Spider or something. So, because I didn't attack with the Lawkeeper earlier, I don't get to go all in. He drops another land. He appears to be quite flooded here. I draw a land. Now I'm flooded too. And at this point, I'm in an awkward position because I can't really win, even if I go all in. If I go all in with everybody, you know, he can chump one guy, he can kill the Minotaurs with the worm, and then I would still deal 4 damage. So I would be, you know, 4 damage away from killing him. Now I give my Crimson Mage haste, thinking I might want to attack with him, but it still just isn't quite working out in my favor. He could even, for example, trade with the Mage and block my Minotaurs, and then I would just have a Volcanic Dragon and a Veteran swinging in for 7 hit points, 1 hit point short, and then at the start of the next round I would need to attack with the dragon to finish him off. Well, if I attack with just the dragon, I still need to just attack with the dragon next round to finish him off, so there was really no point letting my creatures die. It would have been a different story, of course, had I gotten that 1 extra damage out earlier. Well, he's flooded. He starts tapping things, lots of things, and it is a fireball to kill my dragon. Now, because of the way fireball works, which is that it divides things evenly among the targets as opposed to however you want, he did not have enough mana to kill the dragon and anything else. He would have needed, like, I think, 10 mana to be able to do that. 8 mana split in 2 to still deal 4 to this, and he only has 9 mana, not 10. So my dragon is killed, and I'm really suffering from my earlier mistake here, because again, had I dealt 1 damage to him earlier, I could, you know, I could have already killed him at this point. But I do get the Pegasus, which is a nice draw because I can make him hasty with the Crimson Mage. Man, this guy's really earning his keep. I could swing at him with the team now, and no matter how he blocks, there's 4 damage coming at him, so I'm going to win the game. And I knew that was safe because he had no cards left in his deck. So that was a pretty good game. He had 8 lands, I had 7, so he wasn't particularly more mana flooded than I was. I just ended up having, you know, the better cards in this particular case. And also notice it was my decision to play second. That meant I drew this Pegasus when I did. So I feel like although I got a little bit lucky, it wasn't like a blowout just because I rolled the dice well in that particular game. Let's take a look at the other game in that match. So now he's choosing whether to go first or second, and he chooses to play first, like everyone does. I'm really happy for this because now I can keep a marginal hand here. You know, I've got this Crimson Mage coming online for sure, but this veteran needs another land, the greatsword needs another land, but I'm okay keeping this hand because I have an extra card, an extra opportunity to draw out of my troubles. Alright, so I play my planes down. He's got nothing the first couple of turns, so he's just, you know, once again, if you can't play anything in the first couple of turns, the advantage of going first is more or less nullified. I get my dude down. Amazingly, he still has nothing, so I'm actually going to get to attack with this Crimson Mage, which is pretty rad. On this turn, I decided to play my veteran rather than the greatsword. This sword, it was a nice experiment, but I don't think it's that great. I really wish I had had some other playable in this deck instead. Why I didn't sideboard it out, I don't know. I was just giving it chances. Alright, at this point, he plays the Giant Spider, which is a pretty great way of dealing with both of the creatures I have on the board. Unluckily for him, though, I do get a mountain. And I decide that since I'm ahead here, I decided to outrage the spider and attack. So that's 2 damage from the outrage, plus 5 more from my dudes. You know, that's 7 damage here. I figure what's happening with all these cards in his hand, if he's got so many cards and he's making all his land drops and playing nothing, these must be really big things. So I need to race him down, hope that when he plays something big I can active treason it, or pacify it, or both, and then just burn him out for the win. He has another card. It is a Lightning Elemental, not super impressive, although since I don't have any flyers on hand at the moment, it does block them both. It can trade with either one. I decide, however, here, rather than playing the Griffin to go for it, I play Active Treason, and I swing at him. This Lightning Elemental has a lot of strength, so my thinking is that with him at 2 life, I am calculating that what he's got in his hand are huge creatures. So he's going to get his Elemental back, he's going to tap out to play a giant creature, I can pacify one of his creatures, and with 2 guys, swing in and finish off the last 2 hit points that he has. It seems unlikely to me that with so many land drops being made and nothing being played that he would have multiple things he could do here. Well, he does. He plays the Llanowar Elves, and then he keeps tapping his mana, so if he has another creature now, my little gambit isn't going to work out. Especially because the Crimson Mage only trades with the Elves, so he wouldn't even have to chump block. However, what he plays is a Trollhide on my Crimson Mage, which definitely one of the most baffling plays ever. He was thinking of putting it on the Elemental, hoping then that he could just, you know, let... with the Trollhide on the Elemental, what he can do is he can chump block my veteran with the Elves, and he can actually survive outright the attack of my Crimson Mage, because then that would put the Lightning Elemental at a 6/3, and in that case, you know, he would live to see another day, and then he would have enough mana in subsequent rounds to actually use this ability. He doesn't have mana left at the moment to do that, but if he could just survive the next round, the Lightning Elemental would become a very effective blocker against any of my ground troops. However, none of that actually happens because he puts the Trollhide onto my unit rather than his, and then he says AF, which honestly I think is a fairly classy way of swearing. I approve of the AF, and so I decided to be nice and let him know in the chat that it's okay, because I was going to win anyway, and then I apologize about the mana screw he's been having. I decided to win in a fashion that does not require me to make use of this suddenly large creature that I have. I cast my Assault Griffin, I give it haste, and then I swing for the kill. The only thing that can save him is a Fog, and who plays Fog? So I win this match and the tournament. So weirdly enough, it was actually the first 2 matches where I had to get a little bit lucky and I made the most mistakes. I feel like I played fairly solidly in the final match against my opponent, and he just didn't get the draws that he needed, and I was able to mop him up pretty nicely. So that's 3 packs for me. I'm at this point actually 2 packs behind where I would be had I been playing in the 4-3 queue. So initially my theory that the Swiss queue is better for long-term financial gains is not panning out. But in any case, thank you for watching. Please like or subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed the stuff and want to know when more videos come out. And of course, post in the comments wherever you think I made mistakes. Just don't insult my mother, please. Till next time.